Hello everyone, it's Pink. This is a character I created in Minecraft that sometimes says hello. I used the Axiom mod to create it a lot faster, but it was my first time using it, so it could probably be a lot better. The animations were done only using vanilla commands and command blocks. So first things first, I made the head, and then I tried to make the whole body the size of 7 heads to keep the proportions normal. Obviously, at the beginning, I just did a rough sketch to see if the proportions were correct. So it looks a little funny, but it's mostly just a skeleton. Here I realized that the body was not straight, so I had to move the bottom forward. It almost looks a little bit like an angel. Then I started extruding the legs to see how long they had to be. Here I noticed that the skeleton was a little asymmetrical, but it's okay because we can mirror one side once it's finished. Although later I decided to fix it anyway because it was throwing me off. Once I did the arms, I started breaking and placing blocks and looking at the whole thing to see any weird spots that needed fixing. I repeated the whole thing a million times. I started adding the muscle definitions, finishing the shapes, and adding the shoes. At the beginning I gave him clown shoes, so then I had to make them smaller. Then I started making the hands. For this, I looked at my own hands in real life, and I tried to make them the same shape in Minecraft, which is a little hard at this scale. I found helpful to position the player in the perspective of the character's eyes, so that I could see the hands the same way as my own in real life. Then I started making the arms, and I made sure that it looks good from every direction. For the head, I just needed to make it more narrow and give him a jaw. Then I gave him a temporary face and some ears. Once I flipped the other side, I used the symmetry feature to apply all the new changes I do in one side to the other. So after some of the final adjustments, like moving the shoulders closer to the body, I started painting. I used the color picker included in Axiom, which is really helpful. And then I gave him an actual face. Here I was trying to do the shoelaces, but they looked completely wrong. So I decided to give him just a couple of black lines, and it looked a lot better. For the hair, I just gave him a shortcut, and I made him a little bit bald because why not? We love everyone in here. Then I made a copy and moved his arm to start a waving animation. This is gonna work just like the sprites in old school games. We're gonna make each frame, and then we're gonna clone them when necessary. So then I made another copy where his arm is a little bit more to the side. Now that I did all the frames, I needed to get the coordinates of the two corners of each frame. You can write the clone command while looking at a block so that it auto-completes the coordinates for you. The problem is that you cannot clone that many blocks in Minecraft, so I split the clone command in 3 sections. Since the bottom section doesn't change in the animation, I skipped that clone command for the other 2 frames. And then I needed to match the cloning position so that the other frames are also in the same relative position, because otherwise you get this. After this, I also had to make sure that every frame overrides all the blocks from the previous one, otherwise you can get multiple parts from different frames at the same time. So then, to make the animation, I used a setBlock command that places an observer against each of the command blocks for each frame, so that I don't have to make a million redstone wires that go everywhere. It says it can place the block, but it actually activates the observer. The animation was too slow, so I made it faster, and I used a dropper to make it a little random. Then I decided to give him some personality, so I added some blinking and a smirk. After that, I realized that I could separate the blinking from the waving. To do that, I changed the clone command so that they don't clone the face, and I made new commands that only change the eyes, controlled by a separate randomizer. Then I decided to add one last thing. I made a sun that gradually appears and disappears. For this trick, I used a marker entity that I will move with commands. Then we can use the execute command to clone relative to the marker entity, so that only a section of the sun is cloned at a given moment. To control the animation, I made a hopper clock where the number of items is proportional to the height of the sun. When the first hopper is locked, the sun will be appearing, and when the second one is locked, it will be disappearing. I used an observer clock to activate the commands that will move the marker entity and clone the sun. I also had to add an initial fill command to remove all the blocks so that the animation is updated properly when the sun is disappearing. After tweaking the number of items in the hopper, I got it to work nicely. So this is the final result. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see ya!